Hey guys, welcome back to New Wall Carpentry Solutions. In this video, with all my T-shaped moldings already mitered and fitting around for the picture frame or the exterior of all my mutton bars, the next thing I need to do is actually go into laying out all the actual half laps, and this process is extremely important. You want to make sure that one, you lay them out in the proper place to actually leave your frame ending up square. So you actually want to have your frame or your picture frame, being my outside 4 pieces, lined up in square. I'm going to throw them in clamps, and I'm actually going to lay out to where each one of these pieces half lap over them. After getting that laid out, the next thing is to dial in the proper depths that you need all your half laps to be. And in this case, this window is going to have 6 divided lights or 6 individual pieces of glass. So what I wanted to do is actually divide it one time horizontally and then have 3 individual vertical, well, 2 vertical dividers making 3 individual sections. So what I decided to do was make sure that on the exterior where everything met my perimeter pieces, to have the interior muttons half lap on top of it. So what I decided to do was actually run my mid mutton bar and run that all the way across and have that half lap onto the perimeter. And then for my vertical ones, they half lap onto the perimeter, but then they go underneath my mid bar. So by doing so, only thing I have to do on my mid bar is actually do the half lap on the ends. And then for the 2 vertical ones, there's one dado one dado in the middle that actually receives that middle bar, and then the 2 laps on the either end of both of those. And I have to repeat that process, and I also have to do the laps in the middle for all my perimeter bars where each one of the horizontals or verticals intersect. It's a lot of laying out, but this process is extremely crucial. When you go into laying everything out, you want to make sure that the proper depth, the proper location. Well, the depth will actually dial in on the table saw. Once your blade is set right, you don't have to worry about that part. But make sure everything's laid out in the right place, and also making sure that you mark everything in the right place. Let's say you, in this case, you mark to remove the wrong side of your half lap. You know, you just wasted one whole mutton bar. You have to go back into my scrap bin, or in the worst case scenario, if you don't have extras built up, you're starting from scratch and milling rough sawn material to get it back to this size. So we don't want to go through that process. So making sure everything's dialed in and properly placed and marked before we go over to the table saw is extremely crucial. So here I'm just double checking on my measurements, and I do the same thing for the second door. I could assume everything would be exactly the same, but I made sure that I made and marked each piece for each door, and also labeled everything to make sure that I know which perimeter pieces and which individual mutton bars make up each one of the sections, so that way there's no mixing up them at the table saw or anything else. I'm probably being a little too overly cautious on it. The openings for both of these doors are exactly the same. I did really good in the milling and the building process for this. They both came out square in the exact same dimensions because I cut stuff with stop blocks. But again, just to try to eliminate any type of error, I'm going to mark and measure each piece for each individual door. Now we're about to go into all the laying out process though, so I'm going to let all that run. If you guys have any questions about how I did all the layout, please leave that down in the comments. I can try to get more detailed, or maybe make an individual video on how I did this by using like some 2x4s or something. But yeah, I'm going to speed this up and let this part run, because you guys saw this already in the short. It wasn't really too much detail on it. It was just me laying out all my marks. And now with everything properly laid out and marked out, I've already did my first few test cuts on this piece over here on my right hand side. And you can see here actually how I have the marks laid out on all my muntins. I have the depth already dialed in. So first thing I want to do is, since I have a zero clearance insert, I can actually line up the edge of my zero clearance insert with the edge of my mark and then go in for my first cut. I see that it land right on my blade mark, so I'm going to slowly inch my piece over and hog out all the waste. Once I get close to my line, I'm going to do a test fit and then also go back to take any individual passes that I need to make sure everything lines up perfectly. I wish I did have a miter sled, that way I could kind of do stop blocks. I do plan to actually make a full table saw sled. It's definitely one of the projects coming. But for some small pieces like this, it's not actually too hard to lay these out and cut them accurately. You just want to take your time and go slow. And then for all my perimeter pieces like I have here, this is one of those T-molding pieces. I already have the rabbet and everything else. I'm using the taller section, so the full 1.25 inches up against the fence. And the rabbet is facing the blade. That way, 1, I get less tear out. 2, it's easier to keep it nice and stable as I go through the cut. I'm going to repeat all this to actually start doing my assembly. And here is probably one of the most satisfying things I get to do. Is to kind of do the initial test fit and seeing how everything lines up. Later on, I actually do throw everything inside of a ratchet band clamp to get everything nice and square. But again, it's extremely satisfying to see how tightly these fit and knowing that the glue up is going to work out once I get these last few notches done. But yeah, if you guys have enjoyed this process, if you guys like the content, if you guys have any questions, make sure you leave anything down in the comments. And if you guys have enjoyed, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.